everyone and welcome to another video. So if you're new here, my name is Emma and I do videos that involve my many pets, all the books that I love to read, and occasionally the odd makeup look just to break things up. If you'd like to see more of the content over at Beast Books and Beauty, please just hit the subscribe button just down below. It really helps, and thumbs up this video if you can, that would be fantastic. Thanks. So today's video is going to be a very late April wrap up. So the day I'm filming this is actually the 15th of May. So this is a very late April wrap up. I don't know where the days are going. I can't keep track. So we're halfway through the next month and I'm just filming my wrap up. So here we go. And also at the end of the video, I need to pick my TBR book for May. This is why it's so silly to be doing this so late, because I always pick a book from my jar for each month for the Tackle the TBR challenge that I'm doing this year. And now I'm only going to have like 2 weeks to read it, but I will get to that a bit later. So this year I've been a bit slow for me on my reading. I've not reading the amount each month that I'm used to reading, but we're getting a bit back into the swing of things thanks to some audiobooks and some buddy reads. So we're finally getting the numbers back up to a bit more normal level, because like a couple of months I was reading like 1 and 2 books, and that's just not what I normally read. It's not an issue, but I must admit it was kind of annoying me that I wasn't getting into my books so much. But finally, we're in the swing of things, so it's getting better. So this much, I managed to finish 6 books, and this was a mix of some fantasy, some non-fiction, and I really enjoyed pretty much everything I read this month. So that is really good. I might not be reading high numbers, but I'm definitely getting the quality, so that's definitely better. The first book that I finished this month was a Tackle the TBR book, but not the one for April. This is the one for February. And I really struggled with this book. This is Wicked King by Holly Black. I'll pop a picture up at the side. This book I started in February because obviously it was my Tackle the TBR book for February. And I just could not get into this book. This is the part number 2 of the Folk in the Air series, and it follows Jude, and obviously it's carrying on from the events in the first book in the series, so I can't go into too much details, but it's a comeback with the same cast of characters, which is Jude and Prince Carden and all the kind of same characters as before. She's got some more things to do in the world of fairy. It's really difficult to review second books in the series and not give away any spoilers, but it's such a well-known book at this point. I think most people know kind of what this series is about. Jude is a human girl who was taken by someone from the Feylands after they murdered her family, and she's grown up there, and there's a lot of politicking going on and backstabbing and things going on. So it's a really interesting series. But I struggled at the start of this book. I languished. I read a few pages here and there. I was not enjoying it. I was like, oh my god, I don't want to have to DNF a book on my Tackle the TBR challenge. Especially not the second book I picked. It would have been a real disappointment to me. So I pushed and pushed and pushed. And then I loved it. I don't know what happened. I literally I must have been over halfway. And then I was like, oh, I'm actually really interested now. And I just flew through the rest of it and really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So sometimes it is worth pushing through a book that you're not that keen on, because it does turn out to be quite a good read in the end, and that is definitely what happened with this one. I'm glad I pushed through. I did enjoy it very much. And the first book I read, I think, was a bit of a slow start, and that one got 4 stars as well. So I'm really chuffed that I finished this book, and I really liked it. So that is a good thing. I have started the 3rd book, Queen of Nothing, and I've done the exact same thing. Whereas I started that, it must have been, I finished this book in April, so I think I started it the day after I finished this book. So I've been reading it for about 2 weeks now, but I haven't picked it up in about a week. It's the same thing. I'm a little bit bored at the start, but I feel like if I push through, will I get another book that I really like? But then Queen of Nothing gets a lot more mixed reviews, so maybe not. We're gonna try, but again, we'll get back to that later. So that was the first book that I finished in April, and I really enjoyed it, and like I say, 4 stars. Then I started my non-fiction book for the month. I like to read at least one non-fiction every month, and I have a few. I do usually read them as an audiobook. I find it is the easiest way for me to take in non-fiction and concentrate, so I definitely recommend doing that if you struggle to read non-fiction. This one was Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. I'll pop a picture up in the corner there, and I really enjoyed this book. I think this was another 4-star read for me. This was really interesting, and it's one of those books that ignites a lot of material for discussion. Me and my friend that like to have kind of big topic discussions, we've been talking about this quite a lot and discussing kind of different issues we faced. So this goes through chapter by chapter, men that kind of hate women, that are violent towards women, men that hate men that hate women, and it kind of breaks everything down. It goes through things like incels, which are quite violent and aggressive in their views towards women, and then it can be, you know, kind of casual misogyny that kind of still goes on in the world. And it was very eye-opening. It was quite shocking in places. I definitely found a lot of the material quite disturbing, but I'm glad I read it, and it's definitely changed my view and my outlook. I think I'm one of these people that, you know, you can say it's sort of due to privilege or being a bit ignorant. I hold my hands up. I've got a lot of re-educating to do in a lot of issues. But I kind of just went along with the status quo and was like, oh, I'm used to it. Classic example is, you know, I was doing a bit of car shopping recently, and the salesman that we spoke to, me and my friend went and had a look at a few cars, and the first salesman that we spoke to was very condescending. He basically looked at us as two silly women, and he tried to simplify information for us because clearly we wouldn't understand what we were looking for. And he was a bit of a pig. I'm not gonna lie. We did not buy from that salesman, obviously. My friend, the one I was mentioning earlier, she was seething and went back to the car. We left, and she was incredibly angry about the way this guy had treated us. And I was aware that obviously he had been very rude and misogynistic, and, you know, I was aware of that. But equally, I was like, that's just car salesman. And it didn't bother me. But then, you know, we were speaking about it, and I was like, I really should have probably been a bit more angry about the fact that he just so casually treated me like an idiot because of my gender. Which is, you know, that's not okay. Just everyday example of that kind of thing. And this kind of reading is definitely bringing my awareness more to, maybe not so much bringing these things to my attention because I'm kind of aware that they happen, but more, I should be annoyed about this. I shouldn't just be, oh, that's the way things are. You know, I'm a bit too go with the flow sometimes. So some of these things really brought to my attention how unfair things still are, and it was a very, very interesting read overall. The audiobook, I don't know if this is something that's just an Audible thing or not, but at the end of the book there was an interview between the author and chap, I've forgotten his name, but he does a lot of this kind of work as well. And in that interview, she, you know, went into a few more details with things that she was talking about in her experience in schools and stuff like that, and it really added to the whole experience. So if you do have the audiobook and get the interview at the end, definitely give that a listen, because I really enjoyed that and felt like she even clarified some of her points even more beyond the book in that interview, and I really enjoyed that and definitely added to the experience. So I've given this book a 4-star. I think that it's not 5 just because I felt like some bits were a bit repetitive, and I think there are certain areas that maybe, you know, didn't need as much kind of rehashing, but equally it was a very, very good book, and I'm going to read another book by her. I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot from it, and that's kind of the point of non-fiction. So I would definitely recommend this one if you haven't read it yet. Next book that I read in April was my April's Tackle My TBR book. I actually picked this one and read it in April, and it was great. So that is Silver Witch by Paula Braxton. Now, this was for a prompt of pick a book that's been on your shelf for God knows how long and you've never got into reading it. I bought this a good 4.5, 5 years ago, something like that. I remember being in the charity shop, picking it up, pure cover buy because of the beauty of the cover. I kind of match a little bit. That was not planned. I adored this book way more than I thought I would, because I was like, this is a cover buy. I know it's a cover buy. I'm not sure if it's going to be my kind of thing. And I was very pleasantly surprised. So this book follows Tilda. She is an artist. It's like a sculptor, pottery maker kind of thing, and she moves into this little cottage, and she was meant to move in with her, was it her husband? I think it was her husband. She was meant to move in with her husband. He sadly died in a tragic accident, but she moved in anyway and wanted to carry on living the life that they planned to live together. And there is kind of a bit of a mystical, witchy part of it, where there's some kind of, the surrounding area is kind of making her feel quite in tune with the area, and she feels like she's seeing visions from the past, and it all gets very mysterious along those lines. And yeah, I really liked this book. I really, really liked it. I thought the atmosphere was fantastic. You felt like you were there, and I thought the writing was beautiful. And I never thought I was a beautiful writing kind of person. I'm a bit rough and ready with a lot of the stuff I read. And I did actually worry this was going to be a bit too flowery for me, but I loved it. I really liked it. I snuggled up in a blanket and devoured this book. It was really, really good. I actually think I'm going to read a few more in the, it's sort of like a series, the Shadow Chronicles, but I don't think any of the books relate to each other, maybe just companions. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It goes between two timelines with Tilda in the present timeline, and it's Seren in the past timeline, and she is a witch shaman type character from the past, and she's aiding her people with like her visions and her powers and things like that. And basically the past and the present, I love it when they do past and the present, that kind of melds together by the end. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend this book. I think it's way more than just a beautiful cover. I originally gave this a 4-star because I was like, it's really, really good, but is it a 5-star? I don't know. I dithered. It kind of was like at the 4.5 mark, and I put it to 4. But I've thought about this book so much since I read it, and I really liked it. And I actually have decided to bump it up to 5 because it's stayed with me, and I think it's a new favourite. So I think it's deserving of a 5-star, despite the fact my original rating was 4. So yeah, this is one of the best books I read in April. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would really recommend people to give this one a go. If you're not a big fan of slower paced, flowery writing, not a huge amount of action until quite late on in the book, you might not like it. I honestly would have said I wouldn't have liked it. I gave this a chance because of my Tackle the TBR challenge, and I'm so glad I did. I loved it. So give it a go, even if you think maybe you won't like it. But yeah, I was very impressed. I really, really enjoyed this book. So the next book that I read in April was another 4-star read for me. Bit of a caveat there, but it was another 4-star read for me. This is Kill Me Again by Rachel Abbott. So obviously this is the physical copy, obviously. I read it as an audiobook. I'm actually going to unhaul this book because I really prefer reading thrillers as audiobooks more than physical books, I think. So I'm going to get rid of this one, and obviously I have the audiobook copy if I ever want to reread it. So yeah, I read this one. This is book number 5 in the DCI Tom Douglas series, and it is to do with a serial killer that is killing women that all look alike, and it's like the police have to figure out which one was the actual intended target and which ones are just lookalikes. And it was very, very good. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really, really good, and was completely enthralled and listened to it very, very quickly. So highly recommend this series. I think it's really, really good. After reading this book, I decided that my fiance Ewan might like it because we listened to the Maeve Kerrigan series together. So I thought, hey, he might like to buddy read this series with me. So we actually went back to book number 1 after reading this one. Because we started a buddy read, we went back to Only the Innocent, so I will pop that one up there. Only the Innocent is the first book in the series, and it follows the murder of a high-profile philanthropist called Hugo Fletcher, I think that was his name. And basically, they're obviously trying to figure out who killed him and to see if he is as squeaky clean as his image would have suggested, although he was found murdered in a rather compromising position. So they've got some digging to do. I really enjoyed this book. This was a great first book in a series, in my opinion, because it was twisty, it was turny, and it didn't really end the way I expected, which in a thriller is pretty good, because a lot of them end in either in a predictable way or end in a way that is very, very out there and you could never have figured it out. And I feel like this way you kind of could have had your suspicions. I certainly did, but it was satisfying, and I enjoyed the ending, and it was different. So I really, really enjoyed that first one. We have continued to buddy read the rest of the series. Hey there, it's Editing Emma popping in because I managed to forget a book in all of my scattiness. So as I was talking about reading the books from the Rachel Abbott series, the Tom Douglas series, I mentioned reading Kill Me Again, which is book number 5, then went on to say I read book number 1 with Ewan, but we also read book number 2 as well, which is The Back Road. And The Back Road was also really good. It was a 4-star read from me. And in this one, we are looking into a hit and run that happened in a quiet country lane, and trying to figure out who hit this girl and left her for dead at the side of the road. And there is a lot of other sort of twists and turns relating to other characters that all live in this quiet, I think it's somewhere in Cheshire, possibly. So yeah, this was another really, really good book. Another one I really enjoyed. I just wanted to pop in and say that I forgot that book, but I did read it, and that is what brings us up to 6 books for the month of April. And we'll go back to the video. Bye! A lot more of these series will feature in my next wrap up, including another re-listen of this one. Yes, I read it 2 months in a row as part of my buddy read with my fiance, because we love to listen to books together, so it's really, really good. And I will let you know if my opinion changes at all with having listened to it twice. One thing that I would mention is it is obviously a crime book. The police detective is like the main character, but a lot of the information and narration comes from other characters in the book. He kind of is popping in and out doing his investigating, but a lot of the information comes to you from the female main character, which is the wife of the murdered man. So that was something that actually Ewan pointed out to me, because I hadn't really paid any attention to that, and he was like, "Oh, that's interesting. It's you know, the information's not actually coming from the policeman in his investigation. It's coming from someone else." So that may be something you like or don't like. It didn't even really occur to me, because he notices different details than I do. I'm very a general feeling kind of reader, and he's very detail orientated. So we're very, very different. So that's one of the things that's fun about listening to books together, because he notices completely different details to what I notice. I remember character information, and he remembers like verbatim plot information. Like he can remember exact things, which I just can't do. So that's quite fun. So yeah, this book I enjoyed very much in this month, and then of course I read it again in May. Or this month that I'm actually filming. The last book I finished in April was another Tackle the TBR book. I've just remembered, I said that The Silver Witch was April's Tackle the TBR book. It was not, it was March's. And I did read it in March, but my final pages closed on like the first day of April. That's why it's in this wrap up. I'm so confused. 3 books in this wrap up are from my Tackle the TBR challenge. That's not very good. April's book was this book, and it was a prompt of read a book that you have borrowed from a friend and really ought to return. So this is Unquiet Minds by Hugh Miller, and is a non-fiction book about forensic psychiatry, and it basically outlines some cases of pretty depraved crimes. You know, it includes things like homicide, paedophilia, necrophilia. Definite trigger warnings on this book. There'll be a lot of stuff in here that a lot of people don't like. My friend that I got this book from didn't read all of this book because she didn't like the material. I'm a bit of, you know, morbid curiosity kind of deal, and I wanted to read it even though I knew it was going to be pretty horrific, and it was definitely that. The author doesn't really give you a lot of opinions. It's very much, he has a chapter on the issue. There's like a chapter on different things, and he kind of gives some basic information, and then there's 2 or 3 case files of people that were tried of crimes, and the psychiatrist would either say they were arguing if they have some kind of disorder or if they were just evil. The top line of the back of the book is mad or just downright bad. And it was basically people's opinions, psychiatrists' opinions of whether these people had a legitimate condition that made them act in a way that they weren't responsible, or whether they were horrible people who did horrible things. And it was very, very interesting, because you'd read some case notes where there'd be some people who had this defense from the psychiatrists of, oh, it's not their fault, they have this thing, it's nothing to do with them, like they have no control over their actions. And there was other ones where they said the complete opposite, where it's like, oh, they're just evil. And it's like, but it didn't really make any sense, the ones that they were saying that for and the ones that they weren't. And I disagreed half the time. And I was like, but that person follows the same category as you used. It was obviously different psychiatrists, and it's all, that's the thing, it's all different opinions. So like one psychiatrist will say, oh, they've got this condition, and another one will say that condition doesn't exist, it's not that. And this book is old. It was published, I think, in 1994, so it's definitely an old one. Opinions have changed, classifications of illnesses have changed. There is old information in here. But the case notes that they were presenting in this book were also old at the time. It was like some of them in the 60s and 70s. So even at the time of this book, opinions will have changed. So I feel like it didn't really matter. It still kind of had the same effect. And it was one of those books, again, opens great topics for discussion. Me and the fiance discussed it and had kind of differing opinions on it. Me and my best friend discussed it. And we again had some good chats on it. So this was a really good read for me. I really enjoyed this. It was very informative and eye-opening in a few ways and made me think, which I really enjoy. But like I say, the material in this book is quite shocking. If you don't like reading material that may upset you, don't touch it. Just don't touch it. There's hard reading in this. Some of it is really not nice. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. But if you don't mind that kind of material and are interested in psychiatry, then yeah, give it a go. I thought it was worth the read. I really enjoyed it. And I think I gave it another 4 stars just because it did what it says in the tin. I can't really criticize it because it pretty much did exactly what I expected it to do and did it well, in my opinion. I think the only thing I would have said that I could have taken it off for being a 5-star is I kind of would have liked maybe a bit more exploration maybe from the author of his opinions, although I did kind of like he didn't really sway me in any decision making of how I felt because his opinion wasn't there. But I would have maybe liked a bit more, a bit more analysis of each of the sort of cases and what he thought, but it's fine. That's just something I would have preferred. And I thought the order of the chapters was really bizarre. I would have thought that you would have started with something lesser or less violent and worked your way up to the worst of the worst, if that makes sense. That's what my brain would do. And it did certainly seem to do that. It started off with personality disorders, pathological jealousy, but then in the middle, we went into things that were a lot more serious, sort of pyromania, sadomasochism, paedophilia, necrophilia, your big nasty things, or things that can be really severe, cause a lot of big problems. And then it kind of ended off on, some of the later chapters where we went to kleptomania and pathological gambling. And I was like, that's fine, have those chapters in, they were interesting. But the order made no sense. Like, I just feel like, why would you go all the way up to things like, the big bads of paedophilia, necrophilia, horrible things, compulsive rape, nasty things, and then go back to pathological gambling? I was like, that doesn't flow. That doesn't make sense. So by the time I'd read the kind of meaty, horrible chapters that, you're kind of looking at, and then it went back to that, I was like, what a weird chapter to end on. Would that have really made sense to end that? Maybe he didn't want to end on something so creepy. I don't know. But I just felt that was weird. I don't know why he did that. But otherwise, good read. Really enjoyed it. I have a vlog of me reading this and my other Tackle the TBR book, Silver Witch. I don't have for the 2 books before that because I didn't decide to start vlogging them until I'd read 2 of them. But hey ho, I'm a bit scatty, but that's what happens. I have links. I can link up there to reading vlogs with these 2 books, if I remember. But that'll be that. And that, my friends, is all the books that I read in April. And like I said, this is a very, very late wrap up. I'll be wrapping up again in another couple of weeks. But obviously I'm going to have a few more books for May. I think I've already read the same amount of books so far this month that I did last month. So it's been a good reading month so far, which is good. Maybe that's why I took so long to wrap up, because I'm too busy reading other books. So what I usually do at the end of my wrap-ups is pick a TBR book for the next month on, because I don't do official TBRs anymore because I don't really enjoy them. So I just pick one book from my Tackle the TBR challenge jar, and that is what I read for the next month. Obviously, I now only have 2 weeks to read the book I picked out of this jar because I'm so late in wrapping up and haven't done it yet. So let's dive right in and see what book I am reading for the remainder of May. So the prompt I picked out the jar was read a non-fiction book. And I'm sitting here to myself thinking, right, what do I pick as my non-fiction book to read? I've got several possibilities that I could read for this book. Now, I've started a non-fiction book this month, which is I Am Not Your Baby Mother by Candice Braithwaite, I think is her name. So I could technically use that one because I started it this month already. But is it cheating to use a book that I've already started before I pulled the prompt out just because it fits? I don't know. Maybe. Let me know in the comments below if you think that's cheating. Because I maybe will pick another book as well just because I don't want to be cheating. So I have two options for in my head if I'm not using that one. And one is an audiobook called Pain and Prejudice. I can't remember the author, but I'm tempted to read that one. And I also have a Kindle book called Stiff by Mary Roach, and that is the science of cadavers. So both of those would obviously fit the non-fiction book category. And I can't decide which one of those I'm going to read. So I'm going to be really, really annoying and not decide here. And you will find out in my next wrap up what I chose to read. So that's very naughty of me. But I'm going to read whatever I fancy of those three potential books that fits this prompt and not tell you till 2 weeks' time. I will also probably vlog the experience, so you will find out which book I read. It's probably going to be the Kindle one. The Stiff, I think. Because the Do the Thing-a-thon, Readathon challenge, which is being hosted by Ashleigh from A Frolic Through Fiction. So this challenge is a week-long challenge where you have to push on and finish books or meet your reading goals. It's a very much do whatever you want, hence Do the Thing-a-thon. So I was kind of in my head thinking of a few goals that I wanted to do for that week-long readathon. So in my head, I wanted to read the book that I pulled out of this jar because I have to do it anyway. I also wanted to read another book that's on my list of goals for reading, for 21 books I want to read in 2021. I can link the video up above for that video. And the one it was in my head to read was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, because that one has been on my TBR for ages. It's on my 21 books to read this year, which I want to read. And it's also one that Ashleigh herself has recently read and loved, so it feels very appropriate to read it during her readathon. Another kind of unofficial challenge for myself is to finish all of the books that are marked on my currently reading on Goodreads, which, if I think off the top of my head, I currently have The Queen of Nothing, which I've not read, not finished. I've got Rekindled Prophecy by, I want to say Casey Friedman, which I have not finished. The I Am Not Your Baby Mother by Candice Braithwaite. I'm currently reading The Sixth Window by Rachel Abbott, which I will definitely finish in the next couple of days, so I won't really need to use that for the readathon. Is there anything else? That might be it. I think I also have a horse book that I'm reading, like a non-fiction horse book that I'm reading. So I want to clear the decks, basically. The Do the Thing-a-thon for me is clear the decks, actually finish the books I've started reading, and not keep adding to the books I'm currently reading, because it is getting a bit ridiculous. So that is my Tackle the TBR book picked out for this month, although a little bit vague on that one, naughty, naughty me. And my plans for the Do the Thing-a-thon and my wrap up of the books that I read in April, albeit a couple of weeks late. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again in another video very, very soon, and hopefully it will be a bit more organised than this one. Catch you later. Bye.